Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. In this video, we're going to be creating a pricing list structure, and we're going to be trying to replicate the Google One pricing list, where we've got some columns here. We've got a bunch of price list options, and they're also responsive. So as soon as we start reducing the screen size, we can see now that last pricing option has wrapped down onto a new line. And again, if we reduce the screen size even further, we can see it reduces down to 2 items per line, and then it just stacks them all in one line on a sort of mobile responsive view. So let's expand this window to 100% width, and let's dive right into the video then. So the focus of this video is going to be how we can create these type of layouts, or obviously specifically this pricing list layout, using CSS flexbox. Now you might be thinking, well, why don't we use CSS grid instead? And the reason is because if we reduce the window size again, we can see that these are centered, aligned within the center of the screen. So if we had CSS grid, for example, and we knew how many of these pricing options we had, then we probably could use CSS grid, because we could have 3, we could specify for the first row, we'd have 3 columns, and then for the second row, we'd have 1 column. And obviously with specific breakpoints, we could then change it to, when we hit this breakpoint, we could then change it to 2 columns per row. And obviously the desktop view would be 4 columns per row. But let's say we didn't know how many price list options we're going to have in our rows. Then obviously we can't specify, again, if we go reduce the screen size down, we don't know how many rows there are, so we can't specify, okay, we've got 2 rows, the first row will be 3 columns, and the second row will be 1 column, because obviously we don't know how many pricing options we have at that point. So again, if we knew how many pricing options we had, then we could use CSS grid. Otherwise, we want to use flexbox. So let's start actually writing some code then. So I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code, and I encourage you to install the HTML snippets extension within Visual Studio Code. So I'll close this now, and what this will allow us to do is, if we create a new index.html file, within this index.html file, all we need to do is type doc and tab, and it will create a new blank HTML boilerplate for us. So we don't have to type all of this out ourselves. So before we crack on, we're going to create a new style.css, and we're going to link to that style sheet. So it's going to be rel equals style sheet and href equals style.css. Then let's check to make sure that that style sheet has been linked to properly. So let's give body a background of red, and let's open up this in the browser then. And boom, there we go. So our style sheet is connected. So then before we actually start creating the layout, I want to use the Open Sans font from Google Fonts. So just head on over to Google Fonts and select any font you want. And I've just selected the regular and the bold for now. And then I'm going to hit the embed tab here, and I want to link to it. So let's copy this link, and within our code in index.html, above our style.css, let's paste that link there. And then let's copy the CSS rule, and back in the code in style.css, we want body, font family, Open Sans. Okay, and get rid of this background red. Okay, so let's actually start creating our columns then. So within the body tag, first of all, we want to create a wrapper for our price list options. So let's create a new section here, and let's give this a class of price options wrapper. Then let's refer to this price options wrapper then in style.css. We want price options wrapper, and this is going to be display flex. Now obviously we don't have any content within here, so let's add some content before we take a look in the browser. Let's just put a couple of divs in here. Test 1, test 2, test 3, and 4. So there we go. Now let's take a look in the browser and hit refresh. Okay, so we've got test 1, test 2, test 3, test 4, and we know that open sans has been applied, but it doesn't actually look like we've got any columns there. So let's go back to the code then, and within the price options wrapper, let's target price options wrapper. Let's give, and actually, sorry, we want to target any direct div children of this price options wrapper. And let's give a max width of 100%, but an actual width of, let's say 300 pixels, and take a look in the browser. Let's hit refresh. Okay, so what these two rules are going to do is, it's going to say to these divs, right, okay, we can stretch 100% width of our container, but because we've got this width 300 pixels, it essentially puts a limit to that max width. So it won't go over 300 pixels, but it will stretch up until 300 pixels. So that also means if we open up the developer tools here and we toggle the mobile device option here, so that also means if we reduce the screen size all the way down to a mobile view, we can see that the width is obviously smaller here than 300 pixels. So these are like 78.5 pixels in width, because the max width, because we've got display flex on here as well, these are all trying to squish together, but they can only grow to a maximum of 300 pixels. So if we take a look, when we've got maximum screen width here, each of these are 300 pixels. Okay, so if we take a look at the price options wrapper then, this wrapper obviously spans a greater width than all of these four put together, because these are 300 pixels times 4. What's that, like 1200 pixels? And the width of the price options wrapper is 1382 pixels. Now, we want to do two things here. We want to put a width limit on this price options wrapper. So we want to put, let's actually do that now then. Let's put on the price options wrapper, let's put a max width of 1200 pixels. But we also want to add a margin of 0 top and bottom and auto on the left and right. So let's hit save and refresh in the browser. So what this has done now then is we've put a width limit to the price options wrapper, and the margin auto left and right will centrally align it on the screen. But what happens then if we go back to our code, what we want to do is if we add another item here, let's say we want a minimum width of all these items. So let's actually name this test 5. So we want a minimum width for all these items. So we only want a maximum of 4 items per row. Obviously in price options wrapper, we want to specify then for each of our divs a min width of 25%. So this means then if we've got a min width of 25%, it's going to be a min width 25% of 1200 pixels is 300. So then obviously it will only allow us to have 4 of these 300 pixel width items in a row. However, we do have this 5th one spilling over the width of our price options wrapper. So this is a really simple fix. All we need to do in price options wrapper is add a flex wrap of wrap. So let's save that and take a look in the browser, and there we go. We've now wrapped test 5 onto a new row. And if we inspect test 5, we can see it retains that 300 pixel width. But if we take a look at the actual price options in Google and we reduce the screen size, we can see these are centrally aligned. So to do that, again, really simple. In the price options wrapper, we just need to add a justify content and add center. So let's take a look. Let's refresh. And there we go. So we've got, if we increase the screen size here, we've got, and actually just so everything's centrally aligned and it's a bit easier to see what's actually going on, let's add a border here of 1 pixel solid black. And let's add a height of, let's put 300 pixels for each item just so we can see it a bit better on the screen. And also let's add a text align of center. And let's just add some padding as well. Let's add 20 pixel padding, a box sizing as well of border box, because we don't want the padding to influence the width and the height of this div. So anyway, let's go back to the browser and hit refresh. And that looks a lot nicer now. We can actually see what's going on. So we've got our 4 items here. and everything is centrally aligned. So that last item then spills onto a new row and it's centrally aligned on the screen. And if we reduce the screen size, we can see, because when we reduce it down below 1200 pixels, remember we've got a width of 300 pixels on these. So 300 times 4, it's going to spill over the 1200 pixels. So with the flex wrap, it means it's going to just wrap onto the next line, but still retain its width. And again, if we go down, as soon as we hit 3 times 300 pixels, 900, as soon as we go below 900 pixels, and it's 900 pixels of the price options wrapper. So as soon as the price options wrapper dips below 900 pixels, we can see at the bottom there, bottom left there, the price options wrapper is 894 pixels in width. As soon as we dip below that, that's when flex wrap will kick in and place any overflowing items onto a next row. So there we go, we can see we've got 3 rows now, and that last row still centrally aligned, dip down again under 600 pixels, and all our items are stacked in one line or stacked vertically. And again, if we go down even further, we can see because we've got that max width of 100%, then it means because 100% of the price options wrapper is below 300 pixels. So as soon as we dip below 300 pixels in the price options wrapper, then it just fills the price options wrapper as best it can with the max width 100%. Okay, so from here then, let's start updating the styles to better reflect these pricing columns. So let's go back to the code and let's first add, for each of these divs, let's first add a box shadow of 0, 0, 10 pixel and a light gray. So something like DDD. And let's take a look to see what that looks like. And it's really subtle. Maybe let's add a bit of a darker gray to that box shadow. So let's put 999. And let's take a look at that. Okay, that looks a little bit closer to what the Google one is like. So let's actually then just reduce it to 5 pixels. And there we go, that's close enough. So let's add some top margin to the price options wrapper. Let's go margin. Actually, we've already got a margin 0 auto here. So let's add a margin 40 pixel top and bottom, auto on the left and right, just so we've got some spacing at the top and bottom of our price options. So let's add some spacing in between each of these options then. All we need to do here is add a margin. Let's put something like 10 pixels. Okay, so brilliant. We've got our spacing between each item, but you'll notice that because we've added the margin, the extra margin on the left and right of these options, they no longer fit 4 in a row. So to fix this, because our wrapper is 1200 pixels and each of these widths are 300 pixels, but 20 pixel added, all we need to do is subtract from the width here. Instead of 300 pixels, we change it to 280 pixels. And also the min width, we want to change that to calc. We want to use the calc function in CSS. We want to calculate 25% minus 20 pixels. So let's take a look in the browser. And there we go. That fixes that issue. And of course, the behavior is exactly the same. If we reduce the screen size, we still get the nice collapsing of each of those items. And because we've got the 10 pixel left and right margin, we've now got some nice spacing on the sides when we go below that 300 pixel width of the screen. So then let's add some options to these price options. Let's, instead of these test strings here, let's add some H1s and let's put 5 gigabyte, 10 gigabyte. Let's put a space between the value and the unit. Let's put 20, 100, and 1 terabyte. So let's take a look to see what that looks like. Okay, so it's not exactly the same as the Google one, but it's okay for this tutorial. So then let's just add some border changes then. Let's add a border radius of 10 pixels. And we don't actually want this border, or if it's a black border, we don't actually want a black border. We want something really, really subtle, maybe just like a really light gray. So let's refresh. And actually, let's remove that border altogether. Okay, that looks a lot better. We want to change this box shadow to something a bit lighter. So I'm going to go back to DDD because that will look a lot better. Yeah, there we go. It looks a lot more subtle, looks a lot nicer now that we've removed that black border. So let's target that H1 then. Let's put let's copy this, price options, wrapper, div, and then target the direct H1 child of those divs. Let's put a padding bottom of 20 pixels and a border bottom of 1 pixel, solid DDD. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so this is just going to separate the price option title with the price option description. So let's add some random description then in index. Let's add under these H1s, let's add a div and a UL and some LIs. And let's put something like, actually, let's copy from Google. What have they got? Okay, so they've got, let's put Google One includes. At the top of this div, just put a P. Google One includes. Let's just copy all of these and paste it for each LI. Let's actually put, they've got ticks there, but let's put some emojis. Let's put a tick emoji there. By the way, on Mac, if you need to call up the emoji panel and you want to insert an emoji, all you need to do is hit Control, Command, and Space, and it will bring up this emoji panel. So anyway, let's add these into separate LIs. We want access to Google Experts and another LI here. Extra member benefits. And that last one there, let's remove these random squares. So that last one, doesn't matter what order this is in for this tutorial. Okay, so let's just add these ticks then next to these ones. And let's take a look. Okay, so then we want to actually remove that height we added, the fixed height of these items. We want to remove these bullets as well from the bullet list, and we want to chuck all these left aligned, or the text aligned left. So then let's target the UL then within the price options wrapper. So price options wrapper, div, and let's see what we want to target. We want to target, so price options wrapper, direct div, and direct div, then direct UL. So let's go direct div, direct div, direct UL, and let's put list style to none. Let's put text align left, and let's put color, let's put it a little bit lighter than the black. So let's put color of something like 666. And let's take a look in the browser. And there we go. We've got something which vaguely resembles the Google styling. So let's remove that fixed height then on the price options wrapper. Right at the top here, we've got height 300 pixels. Let's remove that. And what you'll notice is all these price options will grow to the size of the maximum option. So let's just remove a couple of these points for now, and then we'll see each of these options shrink in height to match the height of this first item here, because that's the tallest item. So let's go to index.html. Let's just cut for now the last 2 points, the last 2 li items, and let's take a look in the browser, and there we can see each of these items shrunk its height to match the height of the highest item in that particular row. Because you can see this bottom one has no extra height other than the padding and things that we've got in here and the content that we've got in here, because there's no taller item on that particular row. So let's go to the 10 gigabyte one then and paste. Let's have exactly the same structure. Actually, let's copy all of this and let's paste it in the 10 gigabyte one. But then let's copy these 2 LIs, but let's copy them twice and hit save, and then let's refresh. And there we go. We can see all of these items now, including this first item, has grown in height to match the tallest item on that particular row. So I'm not going to fill in the rest of the items. I just wanted to point those things out with Flexbox. So if we then change, let's add some to the 100 gigabyte one. So let's go to the 100 gigabyte one. Let's copy all of this again in the 100 gigabyte one then. Let's paste it there. and save and take a look in the browser. Okay, so what happens then if we reduce the window size down, and so that 100 gigabyte one then wraps to the new row, and because this 1 terabyte is the same on the same row as the 100 gigabyte, it will match that height because the 100 gigabyte is the tallest one on that row. And again, if we remove ones from the 10 gigabyte, just to show you, just so we're completely clear on what this all does, let's remove some from the 10 gigabyte, hit refresh. There we go. So all the items match the 10 gigabyte in height because the 10 gigabyte one is the tallest. Let's increase the size. And again, all these price options increase in height because the 100 gigabyte one now is the tallest one in that row. Okay, so I think I've proved that point there. I think I've gone over that. And hopefully that point has sunk in and you understand that. So yeah, I'm not going to fill in the rest of them and match any more of the Google styles and things. I think it's a bit pointless because the idea of this tutorial really was just to show you Flexbox and how we can create this type of layout, these pricing options with Flexbox. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, then please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel for more related content. I'm trying to upload on a weekly basis or at least on a bi-weekly basis. So also drop me a message or a comment and things if there's anything specific you want me to go over, and I'll happily create a video on it because I'm looking for things now. I'm looking for topics on what I can create on YouTube. So anything goes right now. I'm just trying to find my feet on YouTube and see what sticks and see what people are liking and things. So yeah, give the video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel. Comment down below if you found the video useful and also for any future videos that you might want. And I will see you in the next video.